If you have just recently committed to cooking whole foods, plant-based, healthy vegan meals for your family, you are probably feeling overwhelmed right now. You used to build meals around the meat, and now that chicken or fish is no longer an option, what are you going to do? You probably had a pretty good set of dinners that you could whip up at a moment's notice, more or less improvised when you needed to. What is going to replace those meals? And maybe you're just a little bit worried about nutrition now. Where are your protein, iron, calcium going to come from? In this video, I want to highlight some important changes that happen when you go from meal planning with meat as the base to meal planning with primarily plants in a whole foods, plant-based or healthy vegan diet style. If you do feel like you struggle or feel overwhelmed with healthy vegan meal planning, with whole foods, plant-based transition, please put in the comments below what it is that is the most difficult challenge for you. I am hoping that by the end of this video, you will feel empowered to break through those struggles and prepare, plan really good food for yourself and your loved ones. Yes, this can be a tough transition, but once you see some of the underlying concepts that support this transition, it's going to be a lot easier. Let's do it. The first big difference when you transition from meat-based meal planning to plant-based meal planning is that you are now working not with animal products, but with plants. The good news is that plants stay fresh for much longer than animal products, and they are practically always safe to eat raw. Even in the fridge, meat degrades faster than plant products. There's more bacteria, including the dangerous Salmonella and E. coli, and they can reproduce very rapidly. Even cooked meat becomes rather unappealing after 3 or 4 days in the fridge, changing texture and even appearance. That's a problem I'm so glad I don't have to deal with anymore. Another issue is that if you open a package of meat, but you don't eat the whole thing, you have to repackage it really carefully to make sure it does not drip meat juice on the foods you're going to eat raw. A package of tofu will never cause you that problem, even if you leave it open in the fridge for a few days. What this means for meal planning is that when you are working with plants, you don't need to worry too much about what day of the week you're going to eat what, and how long things keep for. Vegetables will start degrading after a few days, but they will maybe wilt a little bit. They're not going to become dangerous for you. This being said, if you're getting your groceries and your produce on the weekend, it is a good idea to front load at the beginning of the week those meals in which you want the vegetables to be extra crunchy. Especially if you're going to eat them raw, they're just going to be way more enjoyable if they're super fresh, also more tasty, and more of their nutritional qualities will still be in the veggies. So that's true for salads and bowls and stir fries, for example. Greens in particular, because they have a really high moisture content, will wilt a little bit faster. They're still going to be good at the end of the week for things like soups and simmered dishes. That will be perfectly fine. But if you want them to be a little bit crunchy, to have more texture, then you want them to be planned on Mondays and Tuesdays. And by the way, practically all plant-based leftovers freeze really well. Of course, roasted vegetables will lose a lot of their appeal as they freeze and thaw, but everything else like chilies and curries will freeze perfectly well and they will thaw great as well. The second big difference, it is time to stop planning your meals around the so-called protein food like, oh, Monday we're having chicken and Tuesday we're having fish. Not anymore. Of course, you could be thinking, oh, Monday will be black beans and Tuesdays will be chickpeas and Wednesdays tofu. But really, I recommend that instead you focus on the real stars. The featured ingredients at the center of your meal planning imagination should be the vegetables. For every meal, pick one star vegetable, preferably what's seasonal, what looks the most appealing at the farmer's market. That's where you want to go. And then add 2 other sidekicks. Think about eating the rainbow, different colors. And of course, onion and garlic will be part of every meal. Also, an indicator that it's in season and probably more nutritious is that it's a little bit cheaper than it normally is. That's a signal that says it's more abundant, it's more nutritious, it's going to be super tasty. And also most likely have been picked more recently. So the closer the time between the time when the vegetable is harvested and the time when you eat it, the better. So decide your meals based on those peak vegetables. If cauliflower is abundant and inexpensive and looks good, well, it's time to make roasted cauliflower steaks. Those are so good. Or to make cauliflower curry, or maybe even those things that some people call wings, air-fried cauliflower wings. Those are just awesome with a little bit of a spicy sauce. So if cauliflower is inexpensive, go for it. If bell peppers, red bell peppers are cheaper and in season, then it is time to go for everything romesco. You can roast a big batch of red peppers and make the most from them. If asparagus is abundant and looks fresh and plump at the farmer's market, then it is time to roast it and invite me for dinner, because it is my favorite vegetable and it's only available really during a few weeks in the spring at its peak. So that is where you should start when you are healthy vegan meal planning, wanting to be whole foods plant-based. Pick your star vegetables, build some meals around them. Think maybe of having 3 star vegetables for each week, and then the following week, as the seasons evolve, those vegetables will change and you will get a diversity of nutrients from all of those beautiful plant foods. The really big third difference, and I know this will come as a surprise for many people, is that finally you can relax about nutrition. For many people, the transition from a meat-centric diet to a plant-based diet is accompanied by a health epiphany, an aha moment. The food we eat matters. I mean, duh, but yeah, that's okay. If you just realize that, I'm so glad you're here. Maybe you didn't worry too much about nutrition before, but all of a sudden you're asking a lot of questions, and that is good, but it can be a little stressful. So let's be real here. Meat-centric diets don't actually have a ton of nutrition to them. Yeah, there's protein and there's likely iron, and we can debate the calcium situation. Technically, there's calcium if you're eating a lot of dairy products. But what those animal meals have in those macronutrients like protein, they're completely lacking in fiber. Meat and dairy products and eggs have no fiber whatsoever. And in phytonutrients, they don't have the folate, they don't have anthocyanins, they don't have flavonoids, they don't have any of that. And typically in those meat-centric meals, there might be like 1 vegetable or some potatoes. And I love potatoes, they're great, but they don't have a ton of those really cool phytonutrients to their name. Celebrating meat-centric meals because they have protein is kind of like giving a Nobel Prize to somebody who discovered that water is wet. All that meat has is protein and, well, cholesterol, saturated fats. Like, we don't need more of those things. We actually have plenty of protein already, even if we're eating a plant-based diet. Meanwhile, the legumes, whole grains, vegetables, nuts, seeds, spices, herbs, those foods have all the nutrients we need, not only protein, but also everything we need to fight disease like cancer, boost our immune system, and just show up better in the world. And to get all of those nutrients, including your protein, iron, and calcium, all you need to do is roughly follow the green food guide. See here, fill half your plate with vegetables, starting with a bed of dark leafy greens that will bring you so much more. And then add a quarter of your plate roughly with legumes, beans, bean products, including tofu and tempeh. And finally, the other quarter of your plate with whole grains. Snack on nuts and seeds, season with lots of spices and herbs, and drink water. That's really all you need. Just do not forget to take a suitable amount of vitamin B12 every week. I have a whole blog post on that topic. I strongly encourage you to read it. The reason why animal products have B12 to them is that, number 1, they live in poop, which is gross. And number 2, B12 vitamin is added to animal feed. So we can just skip that entirely and enjoy a broad diversity of vegetables, including dark leafy greens, legumes, beans, lentils, tempeh, tofu, all of those, and whole grains, and all of our nutritional needs will be taken care of. I know this is probably still a little bit overwhelming. It does take a lot of practice to get to a phase where we are comfortable and confident with healthy vegan meal planning, with whole foods meal planning. It is a different way of cooking, and we need to just do it over and over again before we get completely confident in it. And the good news is that we have to eat all the time, and there's a long time ahead of us to continue practicing. This is a marathon, not a sprint. If you would like to see an example of what a healthy vegan dinner plan looks like, you can download my planned and plant-based free sample. It is on my website. The link will be in the description below. I encourage you to have a look, to examine how the different dinners work together, see the selections of vegetables, and how there's a bit of variety, but not so much that you're going to be driven crazy. I hope this video helped you think in a different way about healthy vegan meal planning when you want to transition to whole foods plant-based eating, and that you will download the sample plan. If you have any questions, never hesitate to ask. Go ahead and put your question in the comments. I look forward to seeing you again soon in the Vegan Family Kitchen.